Welcome to Real Estate Secrets Unlocked, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of the industry's top professionals, revealing their top secrets to success. I'm your host, Danielle Damianov. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, get ready to learn the latest trends, strategies, and secrets that will help you succeed. Join us as we go beyond the basics and explore what it takes to make it in the world of real estate. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride. This is Real Estate Secrets Unlocked. Hey everybody, it's Danielle Damianov with Real Estate Secrets Unlocked, and we are definitely going to be talking about some secrets today. I am here with George McCleary with McCleary Realty and Development. He was on Dr. Phil, talked about on Joe Rogan's podcast, on News Nation, Fox News, and Bigger Pockets, as well as several other news stations out there. And we are going to talk about one hot topic: squatters and tax deed fraud. So let's get right into it. But before we begin, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and how you got into this whole thing?
Can do, Danielle. Thanks again for having me on the show. So I'm a real estate investor of 20 years, a broker also of 20 years. Most of my work has been in development and flips, and seen a little bit of everything over the course of my career in residential and commercial real estate. And one of those things that I've seen that I don't like very much is squatters. We got a bit of a problem out here in Portland, Oregon, what I've learned is that it's a problem pretty much everywhere. And what happened to me was last February on Super Bowl Sunday, I went super viral with a video that I made called "I Stole a House," and I posted it basically impersonating a squatter, saying, "Hey, this is how I stole a house in Portland, Oregon, and totally got away with it." I just take you through the steps of how these career criminal squatters perpetrate the scam. And I put my phone down, went to go watch the game, and then picked it up half an hour later, and it just exploded with notifications. Never had that happen to me before in my life. I posted on social, had things, do pretty well, but this was like millions and millions, like right out of the gate. And so then TikTok deleted it, then Meta deleted it, but then on X, it was blowing up. But then Meta actually reinstated it, put it back up. It stayed down on TikTok. They're a little bit more harsh. But either way, then the news started calling. People thought that a lot of people thought that I was a squatter and just didn't link back to my profile to see that I was a developer. But either way, it led to a lot of news appearances, like you said. But moreover, Danielle, it led to a lot of really candid conversations with property owners nationwide who had been victims of the squatter scam. And everybody who I had ever met was contacting me saying "Hey man, I saw you on the news. I saw your video. And hey, you won't believe what happened to me with my property with squatters." And I'm like, let's Zoom, let's talk about it. So I started talking to these people nationwide, dozens of them. And what it taught me was, number one, this is a massive problem that's not being addressed. It's an underserved market for real estate investors and real estate owners in general. And number two, it's just a really underserved, underutilized skill to help people with squatters. And there's no repository for information. There's no real head figurehead or guy or gal for that matter, who's really specializing in this field. And I decided to kind of become that guy, and studied it, and I created a course called Squatter Defender, and then learned about title fraud and created Title Fraud Defender. And here we are today, and I'm here to tell you all about it.
That's awesome. Well, it's not awesome about the squatters, but it's all kind of found this niche to help people and create, different courses on it, because there's a lot of things out there that people they have no idea it's really going on. I think it might be more prevalent in some parts of the country than in others, probably because of the laws. But
Yeah, you're right about that, Danielle. It's unfortunately tied to politics to an extent, not entirely, but a lot of times people say, "Well, hey, I'm from Texas, so we don't have that problem down here." I'm like, yeah, you do. You just don't really hear about it." But trust me, there's squatters down in Texas and all the red states. I guarantee there's dozens, hundreds, thousands of squatters going on right now in your red state. But The reason why they have that perception is because of landlord-tenant law. Landlord-tenant law tends to be much more favorable toward tenants in blue cities and blue states. And when you try and evict a squatter as a tenant, because once they've perpetrated their scam, they've convinced the police that they have the legitimate right to be there, that they could be a tenant, and they're not really sure about it, not really sure if they want to pull them out or not. Once they've perpetrated that scam, then at that point, you're stuck going to court, or at least that's the perception, is that you're stuck going to court to get rid of this guy. And what I learned is that's not always the case.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this podcast, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Real Estate Secrets Unlocked, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode. And by the way, if you're a mortgage or real estate professional looking to level up your business, check out the Done by One CRM. It's at donebyone.ai. It's packed with tons of tools that will help you automate your business, automate your systems, your lead generation, your lead follow-up, social media, email marketing, and it will allow you to close deals faster. If you are ready to take your career to the next level, join my team. We are looking for real estate agents, mortgage professionals, and real estate agents that want to be mortgage professionals. We're all about support, growth, and crushing it together. The links are in the description. Check them out now, and let's grow together. Wow. So it made me think though. So, like, let's just say you have a squatter, and in a minute, I want you to take me through the life of the squatter scam. But let's just say that you have a squatter. Now, would that homeowner basically now have to start eviction proceedings on somebody that they don't even like? It's not even a tenant, but based on the lease or whatever that they have, are they then going to do eviction, or is there a whole different side of the law for squatters?
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the loophole that the squatters are exploiting. They're essentially trying to make themselves de facto tenants per just the way that the law works, and trying to pull one over on law enforcement. And so you were asking before about kind of taking you through the cycle. That pertains to that directly. So I'll show you how it works. And basically, what they do is they enter into a property that's vacant. They probably case the place to make sure that they're not going to be harassed while they're in there for at least a while. That's one of their first objectives, is get in there and just not be detected, because they usually need time, and they need time to get established so you can like move in furniture, maybe move in a friend or two, make it look like they legitimately live there. So then once the owner shows up and says, "Hey, who the heck are you?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I'm the tenant, of course. We signed a lease. Here it is right here." And of course, the owner says, like, "Okay, that's not a real lease. You got to get the heck out of here." And the tenant says, or the squatter says, "Heck no, no, I'm not leaving. You got to call the cops." So then the cops show up, and the cops say, "Okay, what's happening here?" And the squatter says, "Well, sir, as you can see, I clearly live here. And the owner claims to not know me, but I've got the utilities in my name. I got my friends living here. I have this lease right here," which the owner says has nothing to do with him, but like, it clearly does. Now he's trying to throw me out on the street. "What, officer, you can't kick me out of here." And more often than not, the officer has says, "Okay, we got a he said, she said situation here. And possession, as they say, is 9/10 of the law. And the shirt on your back is presumed to be your own unless someone can prove right then and there that it's not. And if they can't prove right then and there that it's not, they got to go to court to get the shirt to get the shirt back." Same with a house, especially with a house, because pulling somebody out of a house and arresting them on suspicion of breaking and entering and squatting, you gotta know for sure that you got a bad actor in there that is breaking the law before you pull the guy out of a house. Otherwise, as a law enforcement official, you're putting your neck on the line. So they don't want to do that, and they say, "Okay, you two, like a squabbling couple, you got to go sort this out in court. This is a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. It's civil." So then the owner, pulling their hair out, is like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to go to court and pull this guy out as a tenant. This is insane." So then you call your lawyer, and he says, "Yeah, no, you just got to go through eviction proceedings." It's like, why are we evicting him? This guy's a squatter. Like, evicting him? This is like kind of a tacit admission, like this guy actually has rights. And what they'll tell you is you can also go through a proceeding called ejectment. And that's where you're getting rid of someone who never had the right to be there in the first place. The problem is that takes longer. It's normally a long docket process. And it takes longer than eviction. It's not streamlined. And so it's like, okay, well, do you want to do it like the right way and have it take longer and have it cost you even more money than it was before, which is can be like 50 to 100 or $1,000 or more, or do you just evict them and move on with your life? And evictions can take, anywhere from like a month or two all the way up to like a year or two in some places. And by the end of it, you've got a destroyed house or destroyed multifamily unit, huge lawyers' bills, court fees, and just completely you've been shattered emotionally. These people would cry on Zoom when they're talking about something that happened like 5 years ago. And so,
Well, financially messing them up. Like what if the property was for sale, right? And that now they can't sell the property because they can't get the person out. I mean, we've had flips before that we've not flips, but investment properties that we were, selling, and the tenants aren't paying rent. So I got to go through eviction, and I have because they can't find another place to go. Rents are so high. So we have a contract to sell a property, but now it's delayed 3, 4, 5 months because the tenant's not leaving.
yeah, yeah, that's the unfortunate reality. Yeah, yeah, no, there's the holdover tenants, the non-paying tenants, and the squatters, all have one thing in common is that they're not giving anybody any money. And and if you've got a non-paying tenant, then there might be some chance that they're keeping the unit in decent shape because, at least at some point, you thought it was a good idea to rent to them. The squatters are in there because no one would rent to them and they don't have money and they're criminals. And so the amount of damage that I've heard these people been causing is like unchartable. It invariably, like 99.9% of the time, they completely destroy the place. Running puppy mills out of it is one thing I've heard, like out of the living room, where the animals are just defecating all over the floor, just destroying the kitchen for no reason whatsoever and just leaving in splinters. And then a snake factory, so like breeding snakes in there. Then, oh god, what else? There's so many of them. Stripper pole, that's one of my favorite ones. That was one that got famous. There was a stripper pole and a DJ booth installed in the living room and, a big theft ring in another one. Yeah, they messed the places up.
So what recourse, let's just say they evict them. What recourse does the seller or the owner of the property have in getting like any money back from them? They probably obviously have no money. So maybe take them on Judge Judy. Get some money back.
But whether it's Judge Judy, Judge Wapner, or your local municipality, yeah, you can go after these people for a judgment. But Danielle, you can't draw water from a stone.
Right.
You might be able to get a judgment against Frankie the Stealer, but like he doesn't have a pot to piss and he's not going to be able to pay you anything. And so what you're going to end up with is probably a useless judgment that you're going to forget about in 10 years time that's going to expire. And maybe he'll get his act together and buy a house and sell it within that time period, and you'll be able to garnish, the proceeds from that sale. And, if you have a judgment, it increases in value every year by, what is it, 9%, something like that. So if you have the opportunity to get a judgment and, it's not going to cost you much hassle, like maybe you could do that, but more often than not, you're drawing water from a stone.
So let's talk about the investor. Like an investor buys the property, whether it's to, fix and flip or whatever. And we're seeing this a lot right now. Properties are not moving as quickly as they were before. So they're sitting. What are some of the safeguards or things that an investor could do to eliminate a squatter?
Well, the more units you have as an investor, the more exposure you have to squatters. And so, one thing that I teach in my squatter defender course is squatter prevention. It's basically three parts. It's squatter prevention, detection, and ejection. So if you have a vacant unit, these are the most vulnerable to squatters. It's Airbnbs and vacant units. And Airbnbs because they're just, they're vacant for some duration very frequently. And you can look at a calendar and see if there's a big gap in somebody's occupancy. But if you have any sort of vacancy, especially if it's a long-term rental, I highly, highly recommend the use of an alarm system. And there's a perception that's going to cost you a ton of money, like thousands of dollars, and you got to get a guy out to install it, and it's a big hassle. But that's really not the case anymore. I personally use a company called Simply Safe, and if you buy the Squatter Defender course, I offer a 20% off coupon, or sorry, a 50% off coupon to an alarm system that has a camera, a motion sensor, and a siren. And really, Danielle, that's all you need. That's really all you need. It's self-install. You plug it into the wall. You mount a motion sensor on top of a windowsill or whatever, someplace that'll get set off if somebody's walking through the house. And you can have it call the police if you want to, but really, like, all you really need is it to just send a notification to your phone, like beep beep. Hey Danielle, somebody's in your kitchen. It's like, um, don't remember inviting anybody there. Pull up the camera, and then you got a guy in there. So there's a big difference between sending a cop a video of a guy picking your lock and going into your house and saying like, "Hey, cops, go get this guy," versus showing up after he's been there for 2 weeks and saying like, "Hey, this guy who has all his stuff moved in, yeah, he's not a legitimate tenant." Those two guys are not on equal footing. And so a huge portion of of prevention is just knowing that's the squatter detection portion. That's knowing that there's a guy in your place, that that there's a squatter there. And that's how they get away with it. They slide under, they slide in, they go undetected for a while, and then by the time you figured it out, they're established. So, to answer your question of what can an investor do, invest, what is it? I think with the half price coupon, it ends up being like 90 some bucks or something. You get Squatter Defender, get the coupon code, and get yourself an alarm system.
Yeah.
It's it's laughably cheap and so easy. And plus you can move it around, you know. It's no longer vacant. Take it to your other vacant unit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely an alarm system. And that will at least, like you were saying before, timing is everything. The longer they're in the house, the more they're establishing a residency, even if it's not theirs. Exactly. Let's flip the switch here a little bit. And I want to talk to you about deed fraud. Because you hear a lot about wire fraud, right? And I've had some closings where I had a guy that was on his way to the bank and he called me and he had to wire $100,000 for the closing. And he was like, something just doesn't seem right. I don't know. He's like, the guy was texting me from the title company and he was getting like a little aggressive and saying I have to do it today. And I was like, well, the closing is not until Friday. Today's Tuesday. You really don't have to wire the money today. So come to find out, it was fraud. And if
Oh boy.
he would have wired $100,000, to the wrong person. So I always tell people, like, even if you have the wire instructions when you get to the bank, just call and make sure, like, call the title company, that not the person that's been texting you, but the actual title company that you can find online, and just make sure that that's their wiring instruction. So you hear a lot about that, especially in South Florida. Uh, but the deed fraud is like a whole other level. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and, I actually had, a client, and not a client, that was a transaction. I was representing myself on that one, and the buyer actually got, wire frauded, just like you're saying, and it was a successful wire fraud. They took all their money, and this was the rare case where they actually got the money back. Now, but wire fraud's one of those crimes where the money is very rarely, retrieved. So, and unfortunately, that's the same with deed fraud. The money is rarely retrieved. So, let me walk you through it. So, what deed fraud is essentially is when you forge a fraudulent deed with the county to pass ownership of a property into somebody else and somebody else's name. And then that somebody else, whether it's a real or fake name, they sell the property or take out loans against the property. And the property owner, the original property owner, just never finds out about it for weeks or months or years until they realize that all their home equity has been stolen, essentially. So, how they perpetrate it, it's pretty sinister, but actually very simple. And not many people know this, but forging a deed to pass ownership of real property is incredibly easy to forge. It's not a $100 bill. It's not a passport. It's literally just like a piece of paper. I mean, you've probably seen this. It's a grantor, grantee, address, legal description, etc., and date, signature. That's it. You've got to have a notary stamp on it, but that's the measure of security. So that when the county gets the slip of paper, they look at all that information, say, okay, I got all this. Looks like they got a notary stamp. All right, put it into their system. Title transfers. So then what people are doing is they're doing a couple ways. First, they're impersonating the owner. So they get like a fake ID that says like, oh yeah, for sure. I am definitely Danielle. And I definitely want to sell my nice house here in Florida. So you need to, so you should buy it from me. And oh, did I mention I'm selling it for a whole lot under market value? You should buy it from me really quick. So that's one way they do it. But a lot of times what they're doing lately is they're targeting properties that have like no debt, no liens, no nothing. So there's just a big old chunk of equity in there. And they're going to the dark web. They get a fake ID that says, there's somebody, and that says there's somebody else, but it's a real person. They got a social security number, they got an address, they got all this stuff, except for they got the thief's mug on them right there. So that if they ever want to be them, there they are, and they can get a notary to sign off on it, or a title company or whatever. So what they do is they forge the deed. They take Danielle's house out of Danielle LLC, and they put it into Frankie the Stealer's name. And well, actually, no, the name of the stolen identity, that is. So then he calls up a wholesaler and says, "Hey, I just bought this house from Danielle, and boy, I got a great deal on it. It was worth 700 grand. I bought it for 500. Will you buy it for me for 505 so I can just make a quick profit and get out of here?" And the wholesaler says, "Yeah, yeah, I'd do that." And so then the wholesaler, first time when the title changes, it just goes straight to the county and, it just records or whatever. But the wholesaler, he's going to go through title and get title insurance and everything. And so then he goes and it says the title company, like, all right, everything legit here. And, they look, see the title's passed, see the name on the face all match, the social all match. And so like, yeah, we can send the 1099. We're good to go. So at that point, the property closes and all of the sales proceeds, there's no debt, there's no liens to pay off. And if there is, whatever, they get paid off. But if there's nobody to contact to say, hey, it looks like you're paying off your mortgage, Danielle. You're not ever tipped off. And no one's ever said to you like, hey, it's your property selling because you're no longer the owner. So then the proceeds get wired to their bank account that they got off the dark web along with the stolen identity, and they're off into the night with all your home equity.
So yeah, I'm just like shaking my head because this actually, happened to us. My husband got a for sale by owner on Fort Myers Beach, and he's like, "Oh my God, it's land. It was land," and he's like, "I'm getting a great deal on this land. Da da da. These people are selling it. It's so under." He was so excited, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "This sounds too good to be true. Like, I don't think this is exactly, whatever." I forget. So he had it under contract. He was going through all of the motions with the title company. And I'm like, something doesn't seem right. I went on the property appraiser site. I found the owner. And I'm like, the owner lives in Ohio. The number that is calling you is a Miami number, but they were saying they were the owner. So I found the owner on Facebook and I'm messaging them and I'm like, are you selling your lot on Fort Myers Beach? I just want to, and they weren't. It was a whole scam, and the title company, the thing we didn't close on it, but the title company went all the way, almost like, "She's just still going on like this is a legit thing." Well, I mean, they had the licenses, they had everything, but I'm like, "This guy lives in Ohio." All of the messages are coming from Miami, you know what I mean? And, like, my
Was he impersonating the owner, or was he? Or yeah, okay, yeah, there it is.
Yep, it was crazy, and my husband's like, "We're getting a killer deal." I'm like, does not sound right." So, 2 things I just wanna say real quick. Number 1,
Yeah.
don't use any of these as ideas to go become a squatter or a scam artist. Number 2, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, because another thing is, let's say they sell it to a wholesaler, and that wholesaler assigns it to somebody else before they even close. Now you've got so many different layers, right? I'm trying to figure out where everything is going.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, the nightmare scenario is that after the wholesaler sells it to a guy, imagine you just bought a property for retail value, whatever wholesale value from a wholesaler on the retail market, whatever. And then one day, the phone rings. There's a knock on the door that says, all right, hey, this house got stolen from me. You got to give it back. You're gonna say, what? No, I just paid a bunch of money for this. So yeah, this is mine now. So yeah, and how you sort that out is kind of tough. But the worst part about it, remember the house that that I was talking about with defraud and how it got stolen from you. If you find out about that and you call up your title company and say, "Hey, I got title frauded by somebody who stole my house. So they stole my title. What kind of title insurance do I have for this type of incident?" They're going to tell you that you probably have the Alta owner's policy. And so if you look at your closing statement, chances are that's the title policy that's your title company sold you because that's what they sell to basically everybody. There's a couple different policies that Alta sells. It's just that title companies tend to sell only one of them because it's less expensive. The owner's policy does not protect against fraud and impersonation after the policy date. And the policy date is when you bought the house back in, 2009 or whatever. It protects in the past from there. So 2008 and 7 and back since the beginning of time, like you're good. But if someone frauds you after you own the house, there's no coverage on that. You're on your own. There is a policy that will provide coverage for fraud and impersonation after the policy date, but that is the Alta homeowners policy. It gets a little confusing, owners and homeowners. The homeowners policy does, but as you might expect, it costs a lot more money. So most people don't have it. Most title companies aren't trying to sell it. But if you go to the Alta website, they'll tell you all about it, and they'll also tell you like, hey, watch out for deed fraud.
Well, that's really good that you're bringing that up because on the mortgage side of things, not a lot of times, but sometimes, especially the people that are like nickel and diming their closing costs, they'll say to me, well, the lender's already getting a lender title policy. Why do I have to get an owner's policy? And the reason is similar to what you were just saying, and that's because the lender's policy is only going to protect the lender. So if there was something that happened previously and there's an issue on title, that's going to protect the lender, and the lender uses that policy to fix whatever. It's not going to protect you. So
Exactly.
the owner's policy, which is only a couple of $100 more than the lender policy, and you're already paying for the lender policy. So you might as well get the owners, but the owners is going to protect you in the event that something happens. How much more are we talking? Do you know like how much more the homeowner's policy is?
I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of twice as much, but it's actually hard to get a quote. I called it my local title gal that I've used forever, and I said like, "Hey, can I get a quote on this?" And she's like, "What's that? I've never even heard of this." And she's been in the business forever, and so it's more, but not by like an astronomical amount. But I mean, generally around here, you're you're picking up a title policy for about 500 to $1,000 depending on sales price, and then that's for an owner's policy. But then for a homeowner's policy, it's going to be somewhere like 1,000 to 2,000 most likely.
Okay. So not bad. I mean, especially if you're in an area that is pretty, that gets a lot of fraud. I mean, certain areas get a lot more fraud than others.
Land in Florida, you actually brought that up before with you and your husband. It's I swear the thing that I hear about title fraud most of all is in land in Florida. So if you're down there and you're dealing in land, I guarantee it's going to happen sooner or later. But to your point about the cost, so if you're buying a property, it's not a whole lot more to get that policy, and I think everybody should. But for everybody who doesn't have that, either you can pony up, a couple grand to go out and buy that policy, or there's got to be a better way. But I've got that today, and it's it's basically the software that I created called Title Fraud Defender, and nothing can ever prevent title fraud, at least not right now. Not with like the antiquated system we have just in every single county in America, where you just have like a county recorder. They get the little flimsy piece of paper with the title stamp and everything, or the notary stamp, and they would just record it. There's no blockchain, there's no nothing. That's not going to change anytime soon. But what can be protected is the most important part of real estate, which is the equity. That's how much money you have in the property. And that's what people are trying to steal there. And so what Title Fraud Defender does is just monitors your title. And so that if anybody tries to tamper with it, steal it, or anything like that, you get an instant notification and it says, "Hey, Danielle, notice the title changed. Was this you, or is everything cool?" And if it was, yep, totally. All right, let's change this to another property. Or it's like, wait a second, no, I didn't change title here. And then we say, okay, well, you got to fix this, and we show you how to do it. But otherwise, someone could steal your equity. And so there's another company that basically does the same thing for 20 bucks a month. I'm offering it for like between $2 and $5 a month. And so it doesn't have to be expensive, and it basically can protect all your equity and all your real estate properties for like basically the price of a cup of coffee.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, it's a huge thing. You don't hear about title fraud as much, but just now that we started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, there was this other case down in Naples in a really, really nice area. And I think that the lot was like $1 million or something like that. It was land once again, happened to a realtor. And like she just, she had no idea that she was dealing with a property that was basically essentially stolen. So I don't know like the actual ins and outs of it, but it was a huge thing. It's a huge mess to try and like clean up. So to have
Yeah.
something to, alert you, hey, there's something going on with the title. That's huge. Because
It is. Yeah, and the more and those convoluted scenarios we talked about where it changes hands a couple times, and then the real nightmare scenario is where like land you're talking about down in Naples, that changes hands into a new buyer, and then they start building on it. Like it went from land to improved land, and maybe improved with like a multi-million-dollar house. That can get real sticky right there, because you've got multiple parties with big financial investments in these, and chain of title can't just be like undone. So if someone files a fraudulent deed, you can't just be like, "Hey, that was fraudulent, go fix it." And they're like, "Oh, my bad." And then just like, cross it out with a Sharpie and call it good. No, chain of title has to be changed with a lawsuit. And it's an action to quiet title. That is the only way you can chain of title, and that essentially gives Danielle her house back, but by way of a court order. There has to be like an actual lawsuit to actually do this. And so there's attorneys that specialize in it, and they can get it done sometimes for like a few grand if it's pretty simple. But it has to be like, but you have to catch it pretty quick. So pretend, you sign up for Fraud Defender, Danielle, and you get an alert, and you check it over the weekend. Oh crap, it looks like I've been title frauded. You can fix that relatively quickly and easily with an attorney, fix your chain of title, not lose your equity, and you're good to go. When you're not notified and it's months or years down the line, that becomes a whole lot more complicated, and these attorneys have a whole lot more work to do, and it's a whole lot more expense. So in addition to losing your equity, then you also you also have to go back and fix the chain of title with a quiet title lawsuit. And a lot of people, like, they've already lost their equity. They can't afford to pay a lawyer, and so what do? They're just sitting ducks right then. It's just and it's tragic.
yeah, it's terrible. Well, I mean, this was awesome. Like I really really glad that you came on because it's making people aware of what can happen. With the squatters, that definitely would not be a fun situation. We already know how difficult it is to evict people, let alone somebody that shouldn't even be there in the first place. And then title deed fraud is huge because you don't hear about it as much, but it's a real thing. And just
It's very real.
me, having a couple of instances where I'm like, oh yeah, that. Think about how many other people have the same thing, right? So it's happening all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's no statistics on deed fraud specifically. However, the one of the leading deed fraud attorneys in the country tells me that he estimates, based on everything that he's heard and all the counties he deals with and all the clients and counties and everything, he estimates that there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 cases nationwide every year. And so as a percentage of like just houses in America, it's not a high percentage, but I think about it sort of like life insurance. You're probably not going to get run over by a train on your way to the coffee shop tomorrow, but in case something bad happens, it's good to have a plan. And so that plan for life insurance is going to cost you a decent amount of money if you've got beneficiaries who need some money. But the plan for this one, for protecting hundreds of thousands or if not millions of dollars worth of equity, is like a few bucks. It's not a bad insurance policy. And again, correction, I'm not selling insurance, so I have no license for that, but I am selling monitoring service so that you get a monitor that the train is not going to run you over.
Right. Like alert, something's going on. So where can people get this information? I will make sure that everything, is, if you want to let them know here, and then you can send it to me and I'll include it, but want to make sure that everyone knows, because both of them are definitely important.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Danielle. It's squatterdefender.com, the Squatter Defender course. So you can finish it in an afternoon. It's very dense. It's very condensed, very mindful of your time as a busy professional. It's $199. And I have got a coupon code for you today. So for the coupon code Danielle, you can get 20% off of your Squatter Defender purchase. And then if you combine that with the Simply Safe code to get 50% off of your Simply Safe home security system purchase, you've knocked the total savings down to like, I don't know, $30 or something. So I invite you to go check out squatterdefender.com. And then also for title fraud, titlefrauddefender.com is where you want to go to get the Title Fraud Defender software. That is it's a web-based application. You just fill out your name, fill in your property info, slide your credit card, and boom, you're protected just like that. Oh, and also the Squatter Defender course comes with a free year of Title Fraud Defender as well. So, and also same code, 20% off, Danielle will get you 20% off on your purchase. So head over to those places, but also just find me on social. I'm very easy to find. It's you Google George McCleary, TikTok, George McCleary, Instagram. McCleary Realty and Development is my real estate company. And I'd love to hear from you. If you've got a squatter story, a deed fraud story, just some sort of scam that happened to you in real estate. I'm writing a book right now about real estate scams, and I would love to hear from you. So hit me up on social. Even if you haven't been scammed and you just want to talk real estate or say hi, find me there, and I'd love to hear from you.
I love it. Drop your stories in the comments because I definitely want to hear them too. Thank you so much for being on. This was awesome. I know how important, all of this is, and it's very inexpensive. I work with a lot of investors. It's better to be safe than sorry, and the money like that you're making through these investments or that you could possibly lose. I mean, that's most people's retirement, right? Like
Yeah,
you're investing for their retirement. So
exactly. Don't lose your retirement.
don't lose your retirement. Exactly. So thank you so much, George. This was fun. I really appreciate it. And I definitely want to hear all about your book. You'll have to come on again once it's all finished and let us know.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Danielle. I appreciate your time.
Well, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Estate Secrets Unlocked. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on your favorite platform, and we would love your feedback. Check us out on social and let me know what topics you want more of. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and our show. I'm your host, Danielle Damianov, and until next time, stay motivated, stay excited, and keep growing in this crazy world of real estate. Thanks for listening to Real Estate Secrets Unlocked.